All right, back on the Young Turks. Before I get into the substantive ideology of Christina O'Donnell, one last thing on the sniping. Mike Castle had to get in on the fun. He's, of course, the guy who was just defeated by Christina O'Donnell, who used to be a popular Republican from the state of Delaware. He blamed someone for his loss, too, and it was basically Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, etc. Here's a quote. He said, "I think the misrepresentations and lies of Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh on the air were another very significant part of all of this. I think some of the misrepresentations in my opponent's race were a part of it as well. However, they came up with a theory that I voted to impeach George Bush. How they did that, I'll never know. That was the news for a couple of days right around the election time. But I think Mr. Limbaugh, but those are the kinds of things that make politics very difficult." That's a very funny picture, actually. But look, that's how wide and far this internal war is. He's calling Hannity and Limbaugh liars. And it's interesting because he's now lost, so he's free to do that. If he had won, you know, he wouldn't have come close to saying that about Hannity or Limbaugh. So here we go again. And Hannity, of course, said, "He sounds like a liberal blaming other people." Right, I know, because conservatives never blame anybody else. All right, so now let's do it, right? So Christina O'Donnell is famous for her anti-masturbation quotes and lust in your heart, and she needs to be involved in the sex act, otherwise it's selfish.
Masturbation is part of sexuality.
It is, that's true, but you shouldn't do it either way. You know, quick note on this, and it's very interesting. You know, she's not alone in thinking that that we should legislate morality. And so you know her stance on it. She said, quote, "The reality of that statement is that if you don't legislate one morality, then you're legislating somebody else's morality. So you can't get around legislating morality." I actually agree with her on that, okay? Now, you might be surprised by that, but let me explain. First, every decision we make in a law that we create is to some degree can be characterized as a moral decision. For example, we have all decided together that murder is illegal, it is the wrong way to go, it should be punished, and fairly severely, because we feel that it is wrong. Now, you can call it wrong, you can call it illegal, you can call it immoral, but I think it comes out to the same result in that case, right? The question isn't whether you can legislate morality. I mean, I think all the laws are, to some degree, legislating what we agree upon to be our morals, our standards, right? The question is, which morality, right? And how do you decide that? That's the most important part of it. Because if you say, as Christina O'Donnell does, hey, I've got my religious text, and I have my interpretation of my religious text, and I believe that is what morality should be, and that we should then take that and make it our laws, well, then I disagree 100%. Because, for example, as she's famously known for, her interpretation of her religious text is that if you have lust in your heart, God is angry and doesn't like that, and you cannot do masturbation without lust in your heart, which she's also famously said, hence, masturbation is wrong and no one should do it, right? Now, here's where she's not alone. For example, Justice Antonin Scalia also believes we can legislate morality, including masturbation. For example, in the very important case, Lawrence v. Texas, where the Supreme Court said that you cannot make an homosexual act illegal. We can't get into people's private lives and into their bedrooms and tell them what they can and can't do sexually. Now, Scalia dissented in that case and said, well, that's wrong. And let me read you an interesting quote from that, because it was much broader. His argument was much broader. He said, "State laws against bigamy, same-sex marriage, adult incest, prostitution, masturbation, adultery, fornication, bestiality, and obscenity are likewise sustainable only in light of the Bowers validation of laws based on moral choices." Bowers is the case they were overturning at that point. Bowers was the one that said you can make homosexual acts illegal, right? So Scalia is saying, no, if we say that we can't outlaw gay acts, well, then we can't outlaw all these other things, which we, of course, need to outlaw, like masturbation. And one giant piece of this hypocrisy is conservatives who pretend that they are concerned about the government getting between you and anybody else. Oh, don't get between me and my doctor. I don't want government bureaucrats here or there. What a bunch of liars. No, they want the government in your bedroom. Don't do that. Maybe this. No, you can't do that. I'm going to legislate that. I mean, when it comes to masturbation, they want the government to get between you and your hand. That's how much they want the government in your private lives. And that's crazy. And here's the second critical part of this, right? So what would I use? If we're not going to use the Bible like Scalia and O'Donnell want, and we're not going to use the Sharia law, does anybody in America really want it? We're not going to use the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads, right? So what are we going to use? I say we use logic, human reason. I know that's crazy, right? That makes right-wingers really angry. They're like, you can't use human reason. We have to look up at the sky and say, what does the sky god want? Except, of course, it's not really the sky god talking. It's their leaders who are like, oh, let's do this and this and this for our own advantage, right? No, I say, look, we all figure out logically what it is. And by the way, that's exactly what we do in our democracy. And I think the critical part of that is, and you can count me as a libertarian on this front, right? Which is that if I am doing something to somebody else and they do not like that, well, then that is an issue of morality that we can legislate. I have the right to swing freely my arms, unless your nose is at the end of one of those swings, in which case it's not just my morality anymore, it's not just my personal choice anymore, it is affecting other people. Now, when it comes to the things that only affect myself, whether it's, smoking weed, which I don't do, but I think should be perfectly legal, right? And I have done in the past, don't get me wrong, I'm not judging, no question about that. Whether it's, in this case, different kinds of sex acts, you really want the government involved in that? I can't believe even conservatives believe that. But they obviously do. They're very serious about it. They think this, some members of the Supreme Court believe that the government should be legislating that on a regular basis. So basically, if it's something that only affects me, for the love of God, ironically, and logic, okay, get the government out of there. They have no business whatsoever in there. If it affects other people, well, that's the whole point of the government, is to legislate that kind of morality. You can swing your arms, but the government can tell you you can't swing your arm if it hits someone. Makes perfect sense. All right, but not in O'Donnell's world. So O'Donnell disagrees with me on that, obviously. Here's another thing she believes. She says that if we have all this pop culture going on, it's going to increase sexual harassment. Let me give you her exact quote. We sit there and scratch our heads and wonder why sexual harassment is out of control in this country. It is because we are setting a precedent through our pop culture, through the songs that penetrate the airwaves. She's got sex on her minds all the time. Through the songs that penetrate the airwaves. And the sitcoms that are on television that are just saturated with sexual themes, that respect no boundaries. We need to just do a U-Haul of our pop culture. What does that mean? Does that mean we put it in a U-Haul and drag it away, or does it mean we do a U-turn on it? I think she's a little confused on that one. Anyway, we need to just do a U-Haul of our pop culture. I think legislators, Hollywood film producers, all need to reevaluate why they're doing what they're doing. We end up feeding a demon, feeding a monster, and we're feeding this appetite so much that our generation is going to self-destruct, quite honestly. Now, she said that back in 1996. And since then, if I got this right, we have not yet self-destructed. Now, we had issues with the economy going wrong, but that was the bankers robbing our money. I don't think that had anything to do with the sitcoms. And look, honestly, I don't even know what conservatives think is going to happen. I mean, I guess they have these visions of Last Days of Pompeii, etc. But what happens? Like, so you watch a sitcom where somebody made a sexually suggestive joke, right? And then you go, that's it, I'm ripping my clothes off and let's go, forget it, I'm not going to work anymore. And then the country collapses. And then Canada walks in and takes us over. Look, can pop culture affect our view of morality? I actually think it can, right? And I get that and I understand that. But the part I don't agree with the American Taliban on, as Marcos Melissus would call them, is that you should be legislating our morality, and that if people don't match your version of what's moral, if they're not walking around in a burqa and making sure they never touch themselves, that doesn't mean that society's going to fall apart. It means we have freedom. And we can make those decisions as adults of what to do with our body, what to do with consensual sexual partners or whatever else it might be, and society does not get destroyed. Society's perfectly fine where everybody gets to make their own choices rather than having Christine O'Donnell make those choices for them, or God forbid, Antonin Scalia make those choices for them. So her predictions back then, in my estimation, did not turn out to be accurate in the least bit. So that's Christine O'Donnell for you. Now, let's do a little bit more politics that's broader. First off, I've been sharing different polls with you on Democrats versus Republicans, general polls, voter enthusiasm, etc. The bad news continues to pour in. We've got a poll with a lot of bad numbers. Obama's popularity has gone down from 50% roughly to about 42%. But here's the most important number, in my opinion. This was just at the beginning of this year, in February, before the primary season began. Democrats, believe it or not, had a 49 to 37% advantage. So when asked generically, Democrats or Republicans, who do you want to control Congress? Democrats had a 12-point advantage. Today, what are we, about 6 months later? GOP now enjoys a 55 to 39 advantage. So if I'm doing the math right, that's a 16-point lead. Democrats go from a 12-point lead to a 16-point deficit. That's a 28-point swing in 6 months. That is very, very bad news. And I think a lot of that is the American people. First of all, of course, a lot of it is the demagoguery, et cetera, and Fox News driving a lot of this, covered a million times, and that is true. But also part of it is the American people being somewhat reasonable. And what do I mean by that? They wanted to give Obama a chance. They know Bush crashed the economy. When you still today, when you ask people in a poll who crashed the economy, they say George Bush overwhelmingly, right? But they want to give Obama a little bit of a chance to, to fix it. And they did. And now we're coming up to an election, and it's been nearly 2 years. And they look around and they go, is it fixed? Is it fixed? Nope. All right, I guess I'll go the other way. That's politics 101. And to us, it drives us crazy because we know if they go the other way, they're going to go off the cliff, right? Those are the guys that, in the famous analogy Obama uses, I think effectively and accurately, the ones who drove the ditch into the car in the first place. No, the ditch into the car. It's my usual dyslexia. The car into the ditch in the first place, right? So why would you do that? Now, here's a perfect example. Mitch McConnell, the head of the Republicans in the Senate, has a proposal. Finally, we have a proposal, right? It's disastrous. He says we should not only continue all the Bush tax cuts permanently on the income tax cut, but that we should drastically cut the estate tax as well. So cutting the estate tax would cost us $91 billion over the next 10 years, and that would go not to the richest 2% of the country. It would go to the richest 0.25% of the country. So there's another $91 billion hole in the budget. When you take all of McConnell's tax cuts, you know how much they equal? According to the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, $3.9 trillion just over the next decade. Now, how the hell are you going to find $3.9 trillion to pay for all those tax cuts? You're not. He's just saying, who cares? Deficit? We don't give a flying F about the deficit. We never have. We've always been lying about it. No, we're just going to put a $4 trillion hole in the deficit. Okay, so now when they ask them, well, how are you going to pay for any of this? First of all, of course, the standard answer, we showed you about, 12 clips, 24 clips, where they say, oh, no, you don't have to pay for tax cuts. You see, that's special economic math. If you give tax cuts to the rich, you don't have to pay for it. Somehow the budget magically fixes itself? No, it doesn't, but who cares? We just borrow it. Oh, and if we run out of money later, we'll just cut your Social Security. And then we'll say, oh, the money's gone. Money's gone. What do you mean money's gone? Right? But he does have one specific proposal, and it involves freezing all spending and Are you shocked? And that would save us over the next decade $300 billion. Oh, that's great. That's great. That's about what? 7 or 8% of the size of the hole that he's going to create. So he creates a $4 trillion hole and plugs it with $300 billion by freezing all spending. Of course, not defense spending. Those guys still have to get rich. So, look, I'm telling you, man. In fact, not only am I telling you, but you should.
Thank you for anything.
Damn it. No, you should.
Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell Randy Gonzalez, I'm coming.
No, I'm not coming. They're coming. Okay. Seriously, tell Randy Gonzalez. If you're going to go vote for the Republicans as a protest vote of the Democrats, I know why you're doing it. But don't do it, man. As Ice Cube once presciently said, check yourself before you wreck yourself. These guys, if you thought the economy was bad now, if you thought the rich were well off but the rest of us were screwed now, wait till you put the Republicans in the majority. Disaster on top of disaster. One last note on it. 300 of the top economists in the country came out today and said, please don't try to balance the budget now. You have to do stimulus spending. You have to create jobs. If you create jobs, those people then have money to pay taxes. It balances the budget better. It accomplishes both goals. Get people back to work. The one mistake Roosevelt made in the Depression was he got convinced by the right-wingers to try to balance the budget. Now, you know me. If you watch this show, I'm a budget hawk. I want to balance the budget. But these guys are saying, not now. Don't do it. And instead, of course, the Republicans come in, they're not going to balance the budget either. They're going to make it worse. But they are going to stop spending, and they're going to stop all programs that would hire new people. Oh! No new jobs, no new spending, nothing to stimulate the economy, just more tax cuts for the rich. If you vote Republican, either you're rich or you're mental. Young Turks.
All
right, back on the Young Turks. We got a lot more fun stories for you guys. I'm going to go to Glenn Beck next because he's going to attack Michelle Obama. This should be fun. But he's not just attacking Michelle Obama for actually trying to look out for the health of our kids. How dare she? But he's going to attack all overweight people. Keep it classy. Clip number 7.
Maybe it's the mystery woman with Michelle Obama, who is talking now about how to fight childhood obesity. Watch.
What I am asking is that you consider reformulating your menu in pragmatic and incremental ways to create healthier versions of the foods that we all love. It could mean serving 1% of skim milk, or you could make healthy sides like apples, slices, or carrots the default choice in a menu and make fries something customers have to request.
That is such a good idea. Now, my first thought when she's talking to the NRA was she was speaking to the NRA, and then I realized it's the National Restaurant Association. That makes a little more sense. When I heard this, I thought, get your damn hands off my fries, lady. If I want to be a fatty and shovel French fries all day long, that is my choice. But, oh, no, not so fast anymore. Because now we have the new fact, whether you like it or not, we have government health care now. Well, what does that have to do with French fries? Did you miss the show about a year and a half ago? Because the nation's health care costs are directly tied to the government, and obesity is one of, if not the most costly conditions, costing you and me now at least $150 billion a year. You know those fat people that sit in their couch, and I mean really fat, I mean not like me, I mean the people who like their skin grows into the couch, and then, you know, they call the fire department, they cut them out of the wall, and then they have to bring in a truck, and then they take them to the hospital. I say let them die. I say punish the person who's been bringing them the milkshakes that allowed them to eat and not get up off the couch. Maybe, am I too harsh?
So those are two different ideologies there. And in this absurd attack of Glenn Beck's, we get a decent sense of it. Michelle Obama says, hey, look, I'd like to encourage you to eat better. And you know what? There are people that can help you to do that. For example, in your schools. We can either feed our kids, we can make the decision ourselves as a community, either feed the kids, the unhealthy food and, whether it's fried chicken or Coke, whatever it might be, right? Or we could give them apples and carrots and stuff. We make the decision together as a community. It goes towards our kids. We can encourage them in the right way. Or you can go with the Republican approach where Glenn Beck says, who cares? Just let them eat whatever the hell they want. Feed them unhealthy food as long as somebody gets rich off it, which he didn't mention, right? And then let them die. That's it. Problem solved. That's the Republican way. Look, if you try to legislate what I can or cannot eat, anybody who follows this show knows, that you're going to run into a lot of trouble from me. Okay, I'm not buying it. If the government says, hey, Jake, you can't eat this. Or they say, hey, you know what, if you eat this, I'm going to charge you that, right? I don't like that at all. I'm not in favor of it. It's the government getting way too involved in our lives. I don't like Big Brother looking over my shoulder. I feel guilty enough eating whatever I eat. I don't need Uncle Sam over my shoulder going, it's a little too much ice cream there, big guy, right? So I'm not in favor of that. I'm not in favor of cranking up people's health insurance policy premiums based on that. But that's not what she's suggesting. She's suggesting that we're helpful to our kids in making the right decisions, not the government legislating it. Come on. Is that too much? We can't even do that. And the funny thing is they picked this topic for the First Lady because they thought, well, no one could object to this. Because the thing with First Ladies, ever since Hillary Clinton and the health insurance debacle at that time under the Clinton administration, you go safe. You go safe, super safe, okay? Don't have her tackle any topic that's a little dangerous because God knows what Fox News will do to her. So they say, okay, how about we feed our kids healthy food? And what does Fox News do? They attack her anyway. They're unbelievable. And in the meanwhile, of course, as they're doing that, they want all fat people to die. He says, no, not fat like me, of course. I'm a Republican. It doesn't apply to me. But you fat slobs out there on the couch. By the way, I think it's a terrible idea. Because my guess is that Fox News audience, there's a couple of folks out there glued to their couch, to say the least. So you want to insult your own audience that way? Have at it, Hoss. All right. So that's that. Now, very important issue for you guys to probably end this hour on, and then I've got more on Rush Limbaugh, very interesting story, and more on crazy Republican, the one that won in New York, Palladino, and how other Republicans are reacting. I'm going to do that stuff in the third hour, okay? Okay, so yesterday we told you, we got it. Elizabeth Warren, it looks like interim nomination for the Consumer Protection Financial Board, or Bureau. And that's the position that she advocated for, and we were all in favor of that, and we encouraged President Obama to do that, and it seemed that he had. But I don't know if you caught it. In the beginning of the show, I kept saying, it appears she's gotten the position. Because I kept reading it, and I was like, wait, does she have it or does she not have it? Because it sounds like they gave it to her, but they won't say they gave it to her. And I was like, uh-oh. And that's why, if you remember, I said at the beginning of yesterday's show, hey, you know what? Give Obama a lot of credit on this if he follows through on it. Because, and if you thought it was all settled, then why would I bother saying if he follows through on it, right? Because, of course, it turns out it's not settled. Wang, wang, wang. Now, some are claiming that she is just simply, quote, an advisor to the president, who has to report not only to the president, but also to Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner. That she does not really run the agency, she's just helping to set it up. Even allies like Barney Frank say, oh, no, she never wanted to stay in there long term. No, that would be an insult to her. Now, look, I take Barney Frank at his word that he's trying to help her, and maybe they know something I don't know, okay? But he's saying, oh, no, this is short term. So is she the head of it, or is she not the head of it? And now there are many out there, people claiming, no, she's not the head of it at all. She's just the person who's going to buy the furniture and hire a couple of folks, and then we're going to kick her ass out. All right, one guy who's always hated her is Chris Dodd from Connecticut. He tried to make this stop in 800 different ways. He couldn't. Now he's ready to spin it, okay? So here comes the spin. First he says, what I gather is Elizabeth will be some sort of advisor in all this. There's always been talk about having Elizabeth involved in this in some way, and I thought they might even send her up to be the nominee. They didn't do that, so the issue still remains, who are we going to consider? I appreciate what the White House did yesterday, but the question still remains, who's going to run this place? So in other words, Senator Dodd saying, she's not the head of this agency, and I don't consider her the head of the agency, and this waffling statement that Obama put out about her, trying to be somewhere in the middle, great. It gives me, leeway to say she runs nothing, and I can't wait for the new person to come in. If you thought that was bad, wait till you get a load of his second quote. He says, maybe in the lame duck we'll have hearings and we'll consider who's going to actually run the place, because you need a director and you need someone who's confirmable. Anything short of that, as I said yesterday, puts this bureau in some jeopardy in my view. Without it being established and up and going, it's vulnerable. You understand what that is? That's a threat. He's saying, look, the lame duck session is just around the corner. He's like, we're going to consider the real head of that agency. And after Elizabeth Warren buys some of the furniture there, if you don't give me who I actually want and make sure she gets kicked out because my banker friends are against her, they don't actually want to be regulated. If you don't kick her out, then the whole bureau is in jeopardy, and that I might pretend that we never passed that law and that the bureau never got created, and try to make sure that it does not have funding or authority to actually do its job. I was unclear on Chris Dodd before. I really was. Now the jury's in.
The gentleman is wrong!
It's not what I intended, but that was good. I'll stick with it. Okay, the gentleman is definitely wrong. Now, Chris Dodd, he is going to make a killing on Wall Street. He's retiring. They'll wait a little bit of time for sake of appearances. He'll be out in November. No, actually, by the time it's January. So I predict just as we're entering, finishing up the winter, maybe February, March, maybe they feel like, let's give it 6 months. In the spring, he is going to get the biggest job on Wall Street. He won't be a lobbyist, of course not. That'll be too brazen. He will be an advisor, okay? And he will advise the financial industry on what to do. And they will pay him a grotesque amount of money because he is totally and utterly bought. He is a bought man. He does not work for you. He doesn't work for the people of Connecticut. He doesn't work for the American people. He works for Wall Street and his friends who are about to pay him a lot of money. They don't like Elizabeth Warren because she would do her job. She would regulate the banks so they don't crash again. And Chris Dodd doesn't want any piece of that. He needs to make some of that money before the system crashes again. Grotesque. So, that credit to Obama, now we'll have to wait and see. How long is she in there? Were they kidding? When are they going to pull the legs out from underneath her? Here's what I can guarantee you, though. Oh, she'll be in there through the election. Good progressive. Good progressive. Go vote for me. Go, go. Look, come on. I gave you Elizabeth Warren, kind of. Hey, Senator Dodd, don't worry. We gave the liberals Elizabeth Warren. You know what we need in this country, ironically? Change. That is not what we got. Young Turks.
I don't want your man, 'cause I got it like that, but it ain't even gotta be like that.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Cenk and Casper with you. We got a fun hour ahead for us.
We do.
So I'm going to get right to it.
All right. We have an update on Pedobear. We talked about him earlier this week. And if you can remember, Pedobear was a cute, cuddly bear character that the mainstream media and police officers in California thought was a mascot for pedophiles.
Now, that's what it's put out as, so they're buying it, but it's obviously a joke, right?
It's a joke. It's an online joke, and it started with an online community known as 4chan. Mm-hmm. So it's not actually a mascot for pedophiles.
You see, because pedophiles usually want to hide, right? They don't want to make a big thing like, hey, we're right here and we're coming for your children.
Right.
They don't want to...
Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell Randy Gonzalez, I'm coming.
No. They don't want Randy Gonzalez to know, right? So they wouldn't really make a mascot and say, "Hey, everybody, I'm right here." It's not usually how it works, but some folks are a little slow to catch on.
Right, exactly. So some of the folks that are slow to catch on are some of the reporters in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we have a local news report where they are taking this Pedobear situation very seriously.
All right, let's watch.
I have no idea who's behind the mask. These are pedophiles. These are people that prey on our children.
Child predators, plain dress up. Police say parents need to know that they are out there.
A registered sex offender was spotted dressed as a Japanese cartoon character called Pedobear.
That happened in San Diego at a comics conference at an event that attracts plenty of families, and Tulsa police say this is a reminder to parents to watch your kids closely.
Fox 23's Abby Alford is reporting live with more information on this. Abby?
Well, Clay, in just a couple of weeks, the Tulsa State Fair will kick off, attracting thousands of children, possibly some child predators who could be dressed up as this cute and cuddly bear. Tulsa police say they will be looking for them, and parents should too.
They're looking
Santa
for
Claus,
the bear.
the Easter Bunny, Chuck E. Cheese, clowns, now the Pedobear.
I'm watching everybody.
Because underneath this costume could be a child predator.
You have no idea who's behind the mask.
In San Diego at the Comic-Con conference, police found a registered sex offender who had previously assaulted a child dressed in this suit, handing out free candy.
Children love animals. They love stuffed animals. One of these pedobears walking through the fair is going to attract the children to them. And a parent that's not aware that this could be a pedophile making contact with my child doesn't know any different and snap pictures, and allow them to have contact. And that simple contact could be all that pedophile needs to fulfill his fantasy for the day.
This Pedobear is the latest meme or internet trend that has gone viral, one that pokes fun of child predators.
Some are claiming it's an internet hoax. Well, it's not an internet hoax because someone has taken it one step further.
But it's not just an image on your computer screen. It can be a predator dressed up and looking for his next victim.
These are pedophiles. These are
No,
these
they're
are people
not.
that prey on our children.
As in the case in San Diego, they may use candy to lure children closer, close enough to hug and touch your child.
They're getting stimulated by that one touch. You don't see it. We don't know it because they're hidden under that costume, but that's their sexual stimulation. Keep your children away from these mascots. Keep your children away from anybody dressed up, coming up to embrace your child. Know who your child's around, know what they're doing.
Police say these pedophiles...
Hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband because they raping everybody out here.
And they got candy. Okay, so
you can run and tell that, homeboy.
all right.
We have to clarify something in that video.
Enormously important clarification.
Yeah, so they claim that the guy who showed up to Comic-Con wearing the Pedobear costume was a registered sex offender. That is not the case, okay?
Yeah.
That is 100% false. Tulsa police originally told Fox 23 News the man in the Pedobear costume in San Diego's Comic-Con conference who was questioned by police was a sex offender. Today, Tulsa police told Fox 23 News that they made a mistake and the man in the costume is not a registered sex offender.
He never was. That got made up because they bought into Pedobear.
Right, exactly.
Okay, they're like, oh, this guy's dressed up like a bear. He's got candy. Everybody watch out. Now, the flip side of this is I actually feel kind of bad for them, right? Because they're like, it's like they can't understand the internet.
Right.
It's like Phil Davison said. He's like, what is it? Some sort of server? He's like, he doesn't understand what YouTube is. These guys, they go on there and they're kind of like my dad, where they're like, what is this? What is this bear? Does he like the boys or he doesn't like the boys? I don't understand, right? So they get scared and confused, and then of course they panic. They're like, dude, watch your kids. Here comes the Easter Bunny and the Pedobear. And one touch, that's all they need.
That's their sexual stimulation.
For the day.
All I'm saying is people who don't, or maybe on the other side of it, who don't know about the joke or whatever, they better not show up wearing that damn costume and they could get their ass dismantled.
Yeah. Now here's where I'm not going with a Pedobear outfit. The Tulsa Fair. Okay, you're not going to walk into Tulsa come in, they were like, do. They're like, uh-oh, there he is.
Just one touch.
Just one touch.
But you know what? My favorite part of that video was like the random bear mascot that they found who like carried some child.
You're right.
And they kept using that over and over again.
I feel terrible for that guy who's in that costume because he's now like the poster child for touching kids the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's terrible. All right. See, that's what happens when you start having fun on the internet, all right? People wind up taking it seriously, all right? So be careful out there, all right? Watch out for people say it's an internet hoax, but I looked it up in a series of tubes, and it turns out it's real. I'm telling you, man, I kind of feel bad for him. All right. What's next?
My favorite story of the day.
Wow. Really? That wasn't it? That wasn't it? It beats Pedobear?
Yes, this is probably my favorite story of the week, all right?
Wow, that's a strong statement. Let's do it.
All right, there was a district attorney in Wisconsin who sent several vulgar text messages to a domestic abuse victim. And
good for him.
He was, while he was sending these text messages to her, he was trying to prosecute her ex-boyfriend who would beat her up.
Who beat her and strangled her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so stay classy, San Diego. So she comes in and she's all bruised up, etc. Look, right?
Yes.
And he's like, oh, you're looking cute, baby. How you doing? He's the prosecutor.
He's the prosecutor. His name is Kenneth Krantz, and he is a famous prosecutor. I didn't know this, but it turns out that he has prosecuted women who have glued their boyfriend's penis onto their stomachs.
I think we covered that story.
We did talk about that story.
Okay, that was Krantz. All right, way to get him, man. Way to stick up for the penises. Don't let him get glued anywhere. All right, so we were on his side. All of a sudden, come to find out.
Right. So the victim, the domestic abuse victim, went into his office so he can interview her about the case and find more details about it.
Oh, no.
As soon as she left, he started sending her racy text messages, okay? So I have some examples of some of the things that he sent to her.
Oh, no. Okay.
He wrote to her, "Are you the kind of girl that likes secret contact with an older married elected DA? The riskier, the better?"
No, she's not. She just got beat up by her boyfriend. We don't want risky. We want less risky. What are you doing, man? People, that's the thing. Guys, they can't help themselves. I mean,
it's disgusting. He sent her over 30 text messages.
He blew up her text, man. 30 messages in 3 days. It wasn't like 30 messages over the stretch of a month or whatever.
Right.
He's like, oh, no, what's up? Is it on? Is it on? Is it on? Oh, you're hot. What's going on? Here, get more. Go.
"I would not expect you to be the other woman. I would want you to be so hot and treat me so well that you would be the woman. Are you that good?"
Who said that?
Turns out the prosecutor said that. God, this guy's unreal, man. This woman has been through so much. How do you write that message to her? I mean, how horny are you? How out of control are you? I can't all right, but if you thought that's bad, wait till you get a load of the cheesy line he throws on her at the end. Okay, because it's not working. He's blowing up her text. Okay, and he's like, come on, man. Are you that risky? Are you the other woman? You're not even the other one. How good are you, right? Right, and all this stuff. And then, but she's not responding. She's like, what the hell? Like, in the beginning, she was like, oh, thank you, whatever. At the end, she's like, no, don't know. Okay. And later, she turns to him and she's not suing her or anything. Right. She turned him in because she got scared. Right. And she's like, look, I don't know if he's implying that he's not going to prosecute the case unless I go out with him. I don't know what's going on. She reports him to the authorities. But at the end, he's still going like this, like it's on. He's like he's telling his buddies, like, oh, it's on. Oh, I got her. I'm this close, right?
And what I love is how full of himself he is. Like, he's so sure of himself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hot shit, and there's no way that this woman could not want me. In fact, he questioned whether her low self-esteem was to blame for her rejecting him.
And then put up his picture again. No, you didn't, okay?
Disaster.
So if you are not attracted to this gentleman, your low self-esteem is causing you problems. Because if you had high self-esteem, well, obviously you'd be attracted to this lovely gentleman over here. Okay, all right, so now he's tried every different things. Now it's time to step up his game. You know, he wants to maybe go for drastic measures or something.
Drastic times require what? Drastic measures, yes! Who said that? Thank you! Drastic times require drastic measures!
So here comes a drastic text. I love this one.
All right, he wrote, I'm serious. I'm the attorney. I have the $350,000 house. I have the six-figure career. You may be the tall, young, hot nymph, but I am the prize.
Oh, come on! Come the fuck on! That is unreal! You are the prize?
Well, he does have a six-figure salary.
And he does have a $350,000 house. She might be the hot nymph. She's like, what hot nymph? What? I keep telling you no. I just got beat up and strangled by my boyfriend. Okay, that you're prosecuting. No, I'm not a hot nymph. I don't want anything. And I certainly don't want you. But you got to remember, he's the prize. Okay. Man, you got to give it to him. He's got high self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He does have high self-esteem.
I mean, he walking around the streets like, oh yeah. It's on. It's on. He's like high-fiving people in the streets. Like, high five. Who's the prize? I'm the prize. This guy's the next Muhammad Ali. Except, of course, he's now in a world of trouble.
Not really, though. It turns out that people investigated him, and they found no wrongdoing. He didn't break any laws, so he's not going to lose his job. He's still the DA.
Right. Now, he left some of the victims' boards that he was on.
Right.
He got off this case, etc. And actually, the woman here is a little upset that he got a slap on the wrist. The reason I say he's in a world of trouble is that's too good a story. Okay, now everybody's going to know this gentleman. Okay, so right now he's all right, but this is building. And the press went to interview him, and he was in a rage. Okay.
Oh, totally.
And then he talks to them, and he says, "Look at me, I'm for crime victims," and he shows pictures.
Oh, that was
then he slams the door in their face at the end of the interview. No, he's in trouble. Trust me.
The AP actually went to interview him, and I love some of his answers. Okay, he said, "I wrote the law on crime in Wisconsin," and he pointed to a picture with him with the former governor, Tommy Thompson, and he says, "That's the irony here."
No, you're right. That is the irony. I'm glad you realized that. Man. All right. Anyway, she's going to be all right. Kenneth Kratz, he's in a little bit of trouble. Oh, by the way, his wife is now saying, yeah, get. She rough talking him and running him off. And well, at least the prize is back on the market.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
I should give him a call.
Yeah, I mean, he got a house, man.
He's got a house.
He got a house. He got a six-figure salary. You might want to lock his ass up. I mean, you might be a hot nymph, okay? But you ain't the prize. There's some characters in this country.
Yes.
That's what's going on here.
By the way, I think it goes without saying he's a Republican.
Oh. Of course! Of course he's a Republican. I'll tell you, family values. Hey, how you doing, hot nymph? You know how much money I make? Yeah.
How good are you? Do you want to be the other woman, or do you want to be the woman?
Do you want to be bad, or do you want to be good? Yeah, family values rocks. Yeah. All right. Curious gentleman. All right. Do we take a break?
Let's take a break.
All right. When we come back, is drug use up or down? And what does that mean for legalizing or not legalizing? Interesting. Let's explore when we return.